Well, next on the show, Mayor Scott Gillingham is back in for his monthly check-in and interview, and he's in studio live. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning, Marcy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So let's talk about something that developed this week and went back and forth. We actually have some Winnipeggers to play for you. This is about the Safe Access to Vulnerable Infrastructure bylaw. A lot of people are just calling it the protest bylaw. So just to make sure we have the context here, this is the bylaw that would have created 100-meter buffer zones around a range of sites, schools, hospitals, cultural centers. Within those zones, so-called, quote, nuisance protests would have been prohibited for various reasons. So this was on the books and then walked back. Various opinions about it. We're going to play you two from some Winnipeggers. The first one is Andrew Cohen. He's a community organizer. He helped mobilize opposition to the bylaw.
I think everybody understood that this is important. I think everyone out there, from labor organizations to Indigenous activists to community members who want to go on bike rides together, they all knew that this is do or die.
So in opposition, and now we also have the call to play for you. This was on Radio Noon on our call-in. A listener named Louise called in. Here are her thoughts.
What came into my mind was a situation that happened during COVID, and people were protesting public health policy outside the hospitals, hurling insults at the people going in who were doing a job under very difficult circumstances, creating more stress for patients and families. And I'd like to protect their rights as well. I think if we're going to protest, you should take it closer to where the people who actually are involved with the policy. A real need to protect democracy at every level, the rights of those individuals to protest. But I do feel that there is a need for balance.
So there's a lot of thoughts on this, and I know we're throwing a lot of context out first, but that's because now I'm wondering how you're going to move forward with this. Councillor Evan Duncan has talked about, why this was walked back. Where are you at now with your thinking about this bylaw?
Very much where Councillor Duncan is at. So I think the two clips you played really do show the two sides of this issue, that the bylaw was really trying to achieve that balance. There was never an intent to ban protests. That's a charter right, a charter right that I think we must protect at all costs.
So I have to interject there for a second, because do you regret the language then, quote, nuisance protests?
I don't know about the language, for sure that the bylaw...
Because you can see why that would get people up and
yes, there were several things in that bylaw. It was too broad. There were some other things that should have been, tightened up, perhaps changed, without a doubt. On the other hand, we have to make sure that people are protected. I think it was Louise, the clip that you played, she makes a very good point. This bylaw attempted to strike that balance, protecting people from accessing the places they need to access, but on the other hand, making sure that people's rights to protest were protected as well. Democracy works. And what we saw at City Hall this week is a number of people coming out. Over 120 different delegations came forward. We heard from each one of them that was there, and in essence, kind of received the matter as information, which means we kind of put it on the shelf. I know the intent that came. The intent was sincere. It was a good faith intent. That was the reason for the bylaw. But right now, we're going to put it on hold. Bill C-9 is coming through the federal government, and Bill C-9 that the federal government introduced will address many of the issues and concerns that we attempted to address when bringing forward the bylaw. So we'll be watching Bill C-9.
So watching Bill C-9, and then is this bylaw going to make another appearance? Because when you say it's shelved, you have somebody saying, it's do or die that this doesn't happen. Someone else saying it's important for us to have something in place. What are you going to do moving forward?
I don't see it making another appearance. I think, first of all, we have to watch what the federal government is doing. And I think that, they're looking to address some matters as well. I really believe that obviously people have the right to protest. We have to protect that right. On the other hand, at the same time, I think protests can be done in such a way that other people don't feel intimidated, don't feel threatened by protesters. And that was the case and has been the case in some parts of our city. And that to me is a problem.
Where do you think that's been a problem, where people have felt intimidated, for example?
Well, part of the, members of the Jewish community said very clearly that there have been times in the last couple of years that they have felt intimidated intimidated by some protests. That was stated on the floor of council over a couple of days ago, over the course of the day that we heard all the delegations.
So you believe that still something like this bylaw about moving people further back from, where people are, for example, worshiping, for example, which was in this might be a solution.
Yeah, Bill C9, I encourage people to go take a look at Bill C9. Just, put it into your phone and Google it. It's federal legislation that was introduced in April. Yeah. It was introduced after Councillor Duncan brought forward the call for this motion, this bylaw. And it looks even to define hate. Give a criminal code definition for hate.
Why lean on them, though, if you believe in this and not just say, no, we're still going to go through with this bylaw here?
Any federal legislation that would come into effect, municipal bylaws would have to, fall in line with those anyway. So if we move first in something like this, and again, this bylaw that we were looking to bring in was too broad. It had several things that needed to be adjusted. If we had moved first and the federal government came in with their own federal legislation and the cities didn't line up, then the cities would have been null and void anyways.
So those who are interested in this should really look at C9
yes.
And see how they feel about it.
Yes.
Let's talk about what happened at the Winnipeg Police Headquarters over the weekend. We had 2 people significantly damage that building. They were in a publicly accessible part of the building. They opened emergency water supply valves. A lot of us saw the video of the water just pouring through. How concerned are you that an act like that can cripple a place that's important like this?
I've asked that question already. I said this is something we need to look at post-incident, is to whether or not our staff or municipal accommodations in accordance, in partnership with the police, can find a way to make that site less vulnerable from something like this happening again. I know the police moved quickly. Our municipal accommodations team moved quickly to address the matter, but for sure, we have to take a look and see how this could be prevented in the future.
And so that's something you've asked them to do, to look to make the building more secure overall in the future, like less maybe publicly accessible, or what have you specifically are you thinking about?
First, the request has been, let's have a post-incident review
on this.
How did this happen? Can it be prevented? What can be done so that something like this doesn't happen again in this building or any other city building?
Do you have wider concerns about that building being maybe too accessible in all spaces to the public? Like, is there enough security there?
I think there's plenty of security there. This incident, what didn't happen in the police headquarters, it happened in the tower. Some of the floors of the tower they're not occupied right now. They're not being used. I don't know all the details. Haven't had a chance to go through the details with our CAO and staff, but these are questions that will be asked.
While we're talking police headquarters, obviously the public inquiry on the headquarters is happening now, and the testimony from a former city CAO, Phil Schiegel, this week. Court did rule Schiegel had accepted a bribe from a contractor. As mayor of the city, what have you been doing to ensure a scandal like this never happens again? For people watching saying this was a CAO we had for a long time, and what's in place to prevent that?
These incidents happened over a decade ago. Since that time, Marcy, the city of Winnipeg has taken several steps to make many changes. There have been 2 independent audits, one on real estate transactions, one on the police headquarters itself. Those audits years ago brought forward many recommendations, and the city has implemented those recommendations to make those changes. We have also introduced, it was a campaign commitment of mine, a chief construction officer, the first individual of their kind in any Canadian municipality, to my knowledge. And the chief construction officer can provide independent advice to council, which means that a CAO can't stop this person from providing independent advice to council on capital projects and capital programs as well. So we've made many changes at the City of Winnipeg to the way we do procurement, to the way the real estate transactions are handled, to prevent something like this from happening again.
I want to ask you, at 7:53, we have the Mayor of the City of Winnipeg, Scott Gillingham, live with us in studio for a monthly interview as we go through a number of issues facing the city. One of them is funding. Property assessments came out. Some people were surprised at some of the increase in their tax assessments. We actually talked to Premier Wab Kinew in his monthly interview about sharing more tax revenue with the city, or the idea of levying a tax on high-income earners to support cities. We have a really short clip of what he had to say.
I'm not crazy about this proposal because cost of living, and I'm not really into raising taxes. You know, we've tried to cut taxes, including the gas tax, income taxes, payroll tax, corporate tax. But when you talk about the funding for the city and other municipalities, I think we've done a lot there.
He actually went on and kind of juxtaposed and said, well, where would the money come from? Do you want us to cut healthcare? So nodding to the budgets that they're working with. What are your thoughts on Premier Canute's response? It doesn't sound like you're going to get more stable funding anytime soon from this government.
Well, I do acknowledge that we do get consistent funding from the provincial government, and they gave a slight bump in the grants a couple of years ago. So I acknowledge that and appreciate the partnership that the city has with the province of Manitoba. But Marcy, I have been consistent, and mayors prior to me have been consistent in a call for funding that is related to growth. The city of Winnipeg, like all municipalities, we depend upon an antiquated property tax system where we raise the majority of our revenues to fund the services we deliver through property taxes. We've been doing that for decades and decades. When we're trying to build modern cities, that type of revenue is just frankly not enough. It doesn't encourage municipalities of the city to participate in economic development and growth. And so a growth-related share of revenue, like perhaps a portion of the PST, like some, is the case in some other jurisdictions across Canada, really would encourage and incentivize cities, municipalities to participate more fully in economic development and economic activity.
Do you let it be with the Premier, or do you continue to lobby for that and outline your arguments?
It's not a topic of conversation, but the Premier knows where I stand. I know where he stands. We respect one another, I think. I know we do. I will continue to call for this. Here's a prime example. I've had people say to me, the Grey Cup was great. You must have raised so much revenue in the city of Winnipeg from the Grey Cup. Well, here's the numbers. The 2025 Grey Cup, great event, lots of visitors, lots of spending. The province saw about $8.2 million in added tax revenue. The federal government, $5.3 million. The city of Winnipeg, $385,000 through hotel tax. So there's a prime example that the revenues from economic activity go first and foremost to the federal and provincial governments. And that's why, that's one of the reasons municipalities for years have been calling for a change in the way cities and municipalities are funded.
Just last, obviously, you're getting ready to cheer for Team Canada.
I sure am. I
Yep.
have my gear on today. You've got your jersey here today, which is great.
I was going to say, I'll put it on later. It's the best social prize I ever won, I've been telling people. But I actually want to ask you about Lent. I mean, yesterday we had kind of Ramadan, first full day. People are fasting. With Lent, a lot of people do give something up and they abstain. You're obviously a pastor as well as being mayor. Do you give something up for the Lenten period?
Yes, I have in the past, and this year, actually, I've deleted a few of the social media apps from my phone. So if Winnipeggers and Manitobans see social media activity on my accounts, it's usually my comms team. But the attempt is to do less scrolling, less time on social media, and more time, frankly, in quiet and reflection, and reading a good book or doing something other than being online. So as I said, I've deleted several social media apps from my phone, and certainly will keep it that way.
That's interesting. All right, Mayor, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Go Team Canada.
That is Mayor Scott Gillingham for our monthly interview on CBC.